The Light Between Oceans, Derek Cianfrance's adaptation of M.L. Stebbins' novel, The Light Between Oceans, which is an oddly old-fashioned drama, particularly when you sort of compare it to Place Beyond the Pines or Blue Valentine. So the story is Michael Fassbender and Alicia Vikander are an isolated couple tending to a lighthouse on the aptly named Janus Rock. It's 1919. He's back from the war. And he's seen too much death and too much trauma, and he wants to be alone, so he takes this job tending to this lighthouse in what is a fantastically lonely existence. But just before he goes, he meets Alicia Vikander's character, Isabel, and they fall in love, they send letters to each other, and they decide that they are meant for each other, and he then gets her to come and join him on the island, which is a very sort of brutal and separate existence. But because they are alone and because they are in love, to them, it's a form of Eden.
You know, Janus is where the word January comes from. Named after the same god as this island. He's got two faces back to back. Always looking both ways. Torn between two ways of seeing things. January looks forward to the new year and back to the old. And this island looks in the direction of two different oceans.
You're going to make our baby so clever.
Now, you see what I mean from that clip about it having an old-fashioned bordering on.
You're going to make our babies so clever.
Yeah.
Really?
However, what then happens is that the film has a tragic turn in that they want to start a family, but miscarriages happen, and she becomes almost irreparably heartbroken until one day a rowing boat washes up on the shore that has in it a deceased man and a baby. And the question then is, do they just take the baby appears to have appeared magically, as if from a fairy tale, as if from an answer to a prayer? Do they report it, which is what he wants to do? Or do they do what she desperately wants to do, which is to take the child as their own? Because she says, the child has come to us, the child has been sent to us, it is our child. And the rest of the film then plays out as this sort of kind of low-key and yet overall melodrama about the decision that they make and the implications of the decision that they make. The interesting thing about the film is, firstly, I mean, as you'd expect from, the cast, I mean, Rachel Weisz, who is the bereaved Hannah Rosenfeld, whose anguish starts to drive a wedge between the two central characters. Michael Fassbender, who plays this very uptight, very repressed character in which all his emotions are telegraphed through the tiniest of gestures. We were talking before about Amy Adams reading the manuscript and the close-ups on her face and the tiniest movement having significance. And Alicia Vikander, who for me is just one of the finest actors of her generation. And yet it has this really sort of knowingly old-fashioned feel to it. Not just that it's a period setting, but also that everything about the construction of it, even down to the score that you're hearing there, it all seems to, I think somebody sort of compared it to Nick Sparks. And I'm a huge fan of Nick Sparks. And it would be very easy to be cynical about this. It would be very easy to be sniffy about this. It would be very easy to dismiss it. But it got its claws into me, and I was gripped by it, and I was moved by it, and I shed a tear. And it was...
But you always
No,
shed a tear.
I know, and I knew you were going to say that. But although it is very unlike some of the director's previous films, it is a film which has a story that because, again, I mean, it's funny because I was talking about this in relation to Feral Heart, just that edge of fairy tale, just that edge of something which is somewhere between myth and reality, and the fact that they're on Janus Rock and all that stuff, it worked, and I was won over by it. And I have to say, at the beginning, I thought, oh, this is going to be quite hard work because it looks very, very staid and very, very stuffy, and it wasn't. And what the director does is he makes sure that even with the fantastical elements, that what we are absolutely focused on is the relationship between those two central characters and the way in which this kind of quasi-Shakespearean tragedy does or doesn't play out. And I was moved by it. It worked for me. And I could hear people in the screening I was in sniffing at it. Not sniffing like I was, but going...
Snorting.
Yeah. but I was of the. It won me over.